They say the brightest stars burn half as long. Before Hollywood became the industry it is today, some legends walked a path few truly understood. They gave us their laughter, their tears, and their souls until the moment the screen went black. But while they left us in silence, their echoes have never stopped ringing. Welcome. Tonight we are taking a journey through time, from the golden age of the studio system to the digital age of today. We are honoring 50 souls who shaped entertainment history. These aren't just headlines or tragedies. These are the stories of the dreamers who defined generations. We'll look past the sensationalism to find the human beings underneath the fame. From the rebels of the 50s to the icons of the 2020s, this is a remembrance of the lights that went out too soon and the legacies that refused to dim. James Dean. He was the original rebel. With a cigarette dangling from his lip and a wounded look in his eyes, James Dean represented the restlessness of a generation. Though he only starred in 3 major films, Rebel Without a Cause changed acting forever. He brought a raw, method-acting vulnerability that men weren't supposed to show. The Dean was actually a sensitive artist who loved to sculpt and play the bongos, far removed from his tough guy image. On a dusty California highway, his Porsche 550 Spider met fate head-on. He was 24. He left us with the eternal image of youth, frozen in time, never to grow old. Marilyn Monroe. She was the most famous woman in the world, yet perhaps the loneliest. Norma Jean Baker transformed herself into the platinum illusion of Marilyn. Beyond the breathy voice and the glamour of Some Like It Hot, she was a comedic genius and a pioneer who fought the studio system for fair pay. Marilyn was an intellectual who owned over 400 books, including works by Joyce and Freud, often reading poetry to calm her nerves on set. When she passed at 36, the world didn't just lose a sex symbol, it lost a woman desperately trying to be taken seriously. Her legend remains the ultimate cautionary tale of fame. Judy Garland. Narrator. Her voice carried the hopes of the Great Depression, but her own life was a storm she couldn't escape. The story. From the yellow brick road to Carnegie Hall, Judy gave everything to her audience. Her vulnerability was her superpower. When she sang, she wasn't performing. She was confessing. The Untold. Despite her struggles, she was known for a wicked, self-deprecating sense of humor that could level a room. The Farewell. She died in London at 47. The tornado had finally set her down. As the paper said the next day, the rainbow had lost its brightest color. Bruce Lee. He moved like water and struck like lightning. Bruce Lee wasn't just an actor, he was a philosopher in motion. With Enter the Dragon, he shattered Asian stereotypes in Hollywood, becoming the first global martial arts superstar. He was a cha-cha champion in Hong Kong before he was a fighter, possessing a grace that translated into his lethal speed. A sudden cerebral edema took him at 32, just weeks before his masterpiece premiered. He taught the world that the key to immortality is living a life worth remembering. Natalie Wood. She grew up in front of our eyes, from the little girl in Miracle on 34th Street to the beauty of West Side Story. Natalie navigated the treacherous transition from child star to serious actress with grace, earning 3 Oscar nominations before age 25. She had a lifelong, terrifying fear of deep water, a fear she spoke of often. That fear became a tragic reality off the coast of Catalina Island. At 43, her laughter was silenced by the waves, leaving behind a mystery that still haunts Hollywood waters. John Belushi. He was a force of nature, a comedic hurricane who could raise an eyebrow and level a house. On Saturday Night Live and in The Blues Brothers, Belushi brought a punk rock energy to comedy. He was dangerous, unpredictable, and hilarious. Beneath the wild Bluto persona, he was a romantic who had been with his high school sweetheart Judy since he was a teenager. The party ended at the Chateau Marmont at age 33. The silence he left behind was deafening, marking the end of the innocent, rebellious era of early SNL. Rock Hudson. He was the tall, dark, and handsome ideal of the American man, but his final act was his bravest. The star of Giant and Pillow Talk, Hudson ruled the box office, but in 1985, he became the face of a disease the world was ignoring. By admitting he had AIDS, he destroyed his own carefully crafted image to save others. It was a selfless act of advocacy. His death changed the global conversation on HIV. He proved that a leading man's strength isn't in his muscles, but in his truth. River Phoenix. He was the vegan pacifist poet of Generation X. River Phoenix had a soul that seemed too old for his 23 years. In Stand By Me and Running on Empty, he showed a raw empathy that terrified other actors. He didn't act, he felt. He would often buy the lobsters at restaurants just to set them free in the ocean. Outside the Viper Room, the music stopped. Hollywood lost its most promising son, and we were left wondering what masterpieces we missed. Brandon Lee tragedy rarely strikes the same family twice, but the Lees were haunted by a dark star. Brandon was on the verge of superstardom with The Crow, a film about love conquering death. He had finally stepped out of his father's shadow. He was engaged to be married just days after filming wrapped. An on-set accident with a prop gun took him at 28. The Crow remains his gothic epitaph, a testament to a love that death could not sever. Kurt Cobain. He was the reluctant voice of a generation, a man who screamed in key and bled in lyrics. Nirvana didn't just change music. They tore down the glossy facade of the 80s. Kurt made it okay to be broken. Before the fame, he worked as a janitor at the high school he dropped out of, dreaming of artistic escape. At 27, the burden became too heavy. The shotgun blast in Seattle echoed around the world, ending the grunge era in a single heartbreaking moment. Selena Quintanilla. She was the queen of Tejano, a flower that bloomed in Corpus Christi and captivated two cultures. Selena was on the brink of a massive English crossover. Her smile was infectious, her rhythm undeniable. She designed her own stage costumes, sewing sequins by hand on the tour bus. Betrayal by a trusted friend cut her life short at 23. She remains La Reina, forever young, forever dancing. Tupac Shakur. A poet, a warrior, and a prophet, Tupac contained multitudes. He brought the reality of the streets to the suburbs, blending thug life with Shakespearean tragedy. He studied ballet and drama at the Baltimore School for the Arts, playing the role of the Mouse King in the Nutcracker. Gunshots in Las Vegas silenced him at 25. But like he predicted, his words have only grown louder in his absence. The notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls. The king of New York with a flow as smooth as jazz. His storytelling was vivid, painting pictures of struggle and triumph. He was the charismatic counterweight to the West Coast sound. He was an honor roll student in English before the streets called to him. The Farewell. Just 6 months after Tupac, Biggie fell in Los Angeles at 24. The feud that consumed them both left hip-hop with 2 empty thrones. Princess Diana. She wasn't Hollywood, but she was the most photographed woman in history. The People's Princess. She used her celebrity to touch lepers, walk through minefields, and hug AIDS patients when others were afraid. Her dream was simply to be a queen of people's hearts, not a queen of a country. The tunnel in Paris, the paparazzi, the crash. The world stopped spinning that August night. It was the moment celebrity culture turned on itself. Chris Farley. He wanted to be Belushi, and tragically, he followed the path too closely. Chris Farley threw his body around to make us laugh, hiding a sensitive soul that desperately wanted approval. Tommy Boy showed his sweet golden heart. He was deeply religious and attended Mass regularly, constantly fighting his vices. At 33, his heart gave out. We laughed at the pratfalls, but we cried for the man who just wanted to be loved. Stanley Kubrick, the master, the perfectionist, the man who saw the future. From 2001, A Space Odyssey to The Shining, Kubrick didn't just make movies, he constructed realities. He was a chess hustler in New York parks in his youth, which explains his strategic, calculated approach to directing. He died in his sleep just days after screening his final cut of Eyes Wide Shut. He left the stage exactly when the curtain fell. Aaliyah Baby Girl. She was the future of R&B, cool, mysterious, and effortlessly talented. With Are You That Somebody, she created a sound that pop music is still trying to replicate. She was transitioning into a major film star. She had a secret passion for herpetology and loved snakes, viewing them as misunderstood creatures. A plane crash in the Bahamas took her at 22. She was 1 in a million, a shooting star that vanished just as it reached the horizon. Lisa Left Eye Lopes, the creative spark of TLC. She was the fire to T-Boz's cool and Chili's heat. Left Eye was a visionary who pushed for safer sex messages and female empowerment in hip-hop. She was on a spiritual retreat in Honduras, filming a documentary about her life. When the end came, a car crash in the jungle took her at 30. She was a rebel spirit who lived life at full volume until the very last second. Jonathan Brandis, the blue-eyed heartthrob of Sequest DSV and It. He was on every teen magazine cover in the 90s. Jonathan was a talented director and writer trapped in the image of a teen idol. He was known to be incredibly kind to fans, often spending hours signing autographs so no one went home empty-handed. At 27, the pressure and the drying up of roles led to a tragic choice. His story is a somber reminder of the disposable nature of teen fame. John Ritter, the master of the pratfall. John Ritter could say more with a trip and a stumble than most actors could with a monologue. From Three's Company to 8 Simple Rules, he was America's goofy, lovable dad. He was performing on set, making people laugh right up until he collapsed. An undiagnosed aortic dissection took him at 54. He died as he lived, bringing joy to a room full of people. Ray Charles, the genius. Brother Ray, the man who saw more in the dark than most see in the light. He blended gospel, blues, and country, breaking down racial barriers in music halls across the world. He was a fiercely independent chess player who refused to use a braille board, memorizing the positions instead. Liver disease took him at 73, but as long as Georgia on My Mind plays, Ray Charles is still in the room. Heath Ledger. He was a supernova, an Australian who refused to be boxed in by his own good looks. From the cowboy in Brokeback Mountain to the anarchist Joker, Heath disappeared into his roles. He didn't act, he possessed. He was an avid chess player and a talented director who made music videos for his friends. An accidental overdose in New York at 28. He won the Oscar posthumously, but the world lost a talent that was just getting started. Brittany Murphy. Her laugh was infectious, her eyes full of sparkle. She was the girl next door who could sing like a bird. From Clueless to 8 Mile, Brittany had a range that critics often underestimated. She was a classically trained pianist and singer who dreamed of releasing a jazz album. Pneumonia and complications took her at 32. It was a confusing, heartbreaking end to a life that seemed so full of light. Michael Jackson, the king of pop. The man who taught the world to dance, Thriller, the moonwalk, the glove. Michael wasn't just a musician, he was a global phenomenon. He held the Guinness World Record for the most charities supported by a pop star. On a June morning, the music stopped. At 50, cardiac arrest took the most famous man on earth. The internet crashed, the world wept. Farrah Fawcett, the poster, the hair, the smile. Farrah was the definition of 70s golden girl glamour. She fought to escape the angel mold, delivering gritty performances in films like The Burning Bed. She was a sculptor and artist long before she was an actress. She passed away the same day as Michael Jackson after a brave public battle with cancer. She showed us that true beauty is courage. Corey Haim, one half of the two Coreys, the quintessential 80s teen idol. He lived his made-up life in the flashbulbs, struggling to grow up when the world wanted him to stay a kid forever. He was a talented painter, using art to cope with the trauma of his early years in the industry. At 38, his body gave out. It was a quiet end to a loud life, a reminder of the industry's failure to protect its children. Whitney Houston, the voice. There was singing, and then there was Whitney. She is the most awarded female act of all time. Her rendition of the national anthem still stands as the gold standard. She produced The Princess Diaries, quietly paving the way for diverse storytelling in Hollywood. In a hotel in Beverly Hills, the voice was silenced at 48, but we will always love her. Paul Walker, the blue-eyed surfer who became the heart of the Fast and Furious family. Paul wasn't obsessed with Hollywood, he was obsessed with the ocean and cars. He was the reluctant star. He was a first responder who founded Reach Out Worldwide, flying to disaster zones to help when cameras weren't rolling. A car crash took him at 40. The irony was cruel, but the love from his fans proved that his legacy was about more than just speed. Philip Seymour Hoffman, the actor's actor. He could play a priest, a spy, or a rock critic, and you believed every second. He won the Oscar for Capote, showing a transformative ability that was terrifyingly real. He was a devoted father who could often be seen riding his bike around the West Village, blending in like a local. Addiction claimed him at 46. We lost perhaps the greatest character actor of his generation, Robin Williams, the genie, the nanny, the captain. Robin Williams gave us so much joy, we assumed he had plenty for himself. His mind was a firework display. But in Good Will Hunting, he showed us his quiet, wounded heart. He demanded that every movie he made hire homeless people as extras to provide them with work and dignity. When he left us at 63, the whole world felt the silence. It was the day the laughter died. Joan Rivers, the queen of mean, with a heart of gold. She broke the glass ceiling of late-night comedy with a sledgehammer. She worked harder than anyone, refusing to apologize for her ambition or her humor. She personally supported the families of her staff and was a quiet, massive donor to HIV/AIDS charities. Complications from a minor surgery took her at 81. She went out fighting just as she lived. Prince the Purple One, a musical prodigy who played 27 instruments on his debut album. He defied genre, gender, and industry rules. He was pure, distilled funk and soul. He was a secret philanthropist who wired money to solar power initiatives and tech programs for urban youth. An accidental overdose at Paisley Park took him at 57. The doves cried, and the rain fell purple. David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, the Thin White Duke, the man who fell to earth. Bowie didn't just change his style, he changed the culture. He made it cool to be weird. He kept his 18-month battle with cancer a complete secret, turning his death into his final piece of art, the album Black Star. He left us at 69. He didn't die. He just went back to his home planet. Carrie Fisher, our princess, our general, the writer who turned her pain into hilarious prose. She was more than Leia. She was a mental health advocate who refused to be ashamed of her struggles. She was a top Hollywood script doctor, secretly fixing the dialogue in movies like Hook and Sister Act. Her heart stopped at 60, and in a Shakespearean twist, her mother, Debbie Reynolds, passed away the very next day to be with her. Anton Yelchin, an old soul with a raspy voice and a brilliant future. As Chekhov in Star Trek, he brought energy and wit. In indie films, he brought depth. He was a talented photographer and musician who played in a punk band. A freak accident in his own driveway took him at 27. It was a senseless tragedy that cut short a career destined for greatness. Chester Bennington, the voice of Linkin Park. He screamed the angst that millions of us felt but couldn't express. He blended rock and rap, creating a sound that defined the 2000s. He was known for stopping concerts if he saw a fan fall down, prioritizing safety and kindness above the show. Suicide took him at 41. He saved so many with his lyrics, but he couldn't save himself. Chris Cornell, the architect of grunge, a voice that could shatter glass and heal hearts. From Soundgarden to Audioslave, Chris had a 4-octave range that was simply unmatched. He started a foundation to protect vulnerable children, driven by his love for his own family. He left us at 52, just hours after a show. The Black Hole Sun finally washed away the rain. Naya Rivera, a triple threat with a razor-sharp wit. Santana Lopez on Glee. She broke barriers for LGBTQ+ representation on TV, playing a cheerleader struggling with her identity. Her final act was saving her son. She mustered enough energy to push him back onto the boat, but not enough to save herself. She drowned at 33. A mother's love, enduring to the very end. Chadwick Boseman, the King, the Black Panther, a man of quiet dignity and immense power. He brought historical giants like Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall to life, then gave the world the superhero it needed. He filmed blockbuster action movies while undergoing chemotherapy and surgeries, telling almost no one. Colon cancer took him at 43. He showed us that you can be a superhero even when you are hurting. Wakanda forever. Kobe Bryant, the Mamba. He wasn't an actor, but he was Hollywood's greatest competitor. 5 rings. An Oscar winner for animation, a storyteller. He was evolving into the ultimate girl dad, championing women's sports with his daughter Gianna. The fog in Calabasas, the crash. The world stopped. At 41, the legend ended, but the Mamba mentality lives on. Anne Heche, a brave, complex talent who lived life on her own terms. She was a soap opera star turned indie darling and one half of a groundbreaking relationship with Ellen DeGeneres in the 90s. She struggled with mental health openly, writing about it before it was acceptable to do so. A fiery car crash ended her journey at 53, a chaotic end to a life-seeking peace. Bob Saget, America's dad, the narrator of our lives. On Full House, he was wholesome. On stage, he was filthily hilarious. He contained multitudes. He sent long texts of love and support to his friends constantly. He never left things unsaid. Head trauma in a hotel room at 65. We lost the man who hugged us through the TV screen. Ray Liotta, the intense blue-eyed gangster who could be terrifying and vulnerable in the same breath. Goodfellas made him a legend. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. He was adopted and spent years searching for his biological history, a journey that softened his tough exterior. He died in his sleep at 67 while filming. He went out working, doing what he loved. Aaron Carter, the little prince of pop, the kid who wanted candy. He was a superstar by age 10, opening for the Backstreet Boys. He was a self-taught producer who desperately wanted to be respected for his beats, not just his past. Drowning in complications at 34, another child star consumed by the machine that built him. Lisa Marie Presley, the daughter of the king. She carried the weight of Graceland her entire life. She was a singer-songwriter with a bluesy voice that was all her own. She never recovered from the suicide of her son, Benjamin. She died of a broken heart as much as anything else. Cardiac arrest at 54. She is finally at peace, resting beside her father and her son, Matthew Perry. Our friend, Chandler Bing, the man who made sarcasm a love language. He made the world laugh while he was in agony. Friends is his legacy, but his memoir is his testament. He turned his Malibu home into a sober living facility for men. He wanted to be remembered for helping people, not just for being funny. He drowned at 54. Could we be any more heartbroken? Angus Cloud, the breakout soul of Euphoria, Fezco. He was plucked off the street to act, bringing a naturalism that can't be taught. He was grieving the loss of his father just a week prior. The bond was unbreakable. An accidental overdose at 25. A bright light extinguished before we truly saw it shine. Bernie Mac, the king of comedy. I ain't scared of you. Bernie Mac worked for decades before getting his break. He was fearless, loud, and unapologetically himself. He suffered from sarcoidosis for years, hiding the pain to keep the audience laughing. Pneumonia took him at 50. Even today, the silence where his laughter used to be is shocking. Corey Monteith, the quarterback with the drummer's heart. Finn Hudson. He was the tall, awkward, lovable lead of Glee. He made it cool for jocks to sing. He was open about his teenage struggles with addiction, trying to be a role model for kids like him. An overdose in Vancouver at 31. The quarterback is gone, but the song remains. Sinead O'Connor, the warrior. The shaved head. The tears. She ripped up a picture of the Pope and tore down the industry. Nothing compares. You remains a masterpiece of emotion. She was a fragile soul who felt things too deeply in a world that demands numbness. She passed at 56. She was a protest singer until the end. Now, finally, she has found the silence she deserved. 50 lives, 50 stories, 50 empty spaces in the skyline of Hollywood. From James Dean's Porsche to Matthew Perry's final swim, these departures remind us of a singular, difficult truth. Fame protects no one. Talent is not a shield against mortality. But as we look back at these flickering images, let's not dwell on how they died. Let's remember how they lived. They made us feel less alone. They gave us soundtracks for our first kisses, heroes for our battles, and laughter for our darkest days. The screen may go dark, but the light they cast travels on forever. Which of these legends lives on most brightly in your memory? Who do you still miss when the movie starts? Let us know in the comments below.